Mom wrote kids' book after her husband died. Now she's charged with his murder. A family of five from Utah faced an unspeakable tragedy last year. Eric Richens, a husband and father of three, died suddenly. The cause of death was a mystery at the time, yet it devastated the life of Corey Richens and her three children. To cope with the pain, they turned to literature. With the help of her kids, Richens wrote a children's book titled Are You With Me? To help other kids deal with loss. What a heartwarming story. Or it was until Richens got charged with murdering her husband. She has now been arrested and is facing charges of poisoning her husband with a deadly dose of fentanyl. See, this is why we can't have nice things. The Richens family's supposed tragedy happened in March of 2022. That night, Mrs. Richens made her husband a Moscow Mule to celebrate a success at his workplace. After handing the mixed vodka drink to him, she went to one of her son's rooms. The child reportedly suffers from night terrors, and Mrs. Richens fell asleep next to him. When she woke up, she discovered to her horror that her husband was unconscious. When she went to him, he was cold to the touch. At the time, it seemed the entire family had been shaken by their loss. To try and help her children understand what had happened, Mrs. Richens said she started looking for a suitable children's book. Unfortunately, she couldn't find any, so she decided to write her own, despite having no literary background. I'm not a previous author. I am not a child psychologist. I'm not a counselor, right? Richens told KPCW in April of 2023. I am a mom of three kids, and I can only write about what I know and what we're going through. To make the book as authentic as possible, Mrs. Richens asked her children to help, to the extent they could. Her kids told what they were feeling to fuel Richens' writing process. It's been a long, long year and a difficult year. Writing this book has brought a little peace to me, and to me and my boys. The book, Are You With Me, was published in March of this year, a year after Eric's death. Another book called Mom, How Far Away Is Heaven was slated for publication in May. Unfortunately, new details have shown that the story Miss Richens had spun isn't exactly correct. In fact, if the allegations are true, it's downright fraudulent. Remember how I said Eric's cause of death was initially a mystery? It didn't stay that way. A medical examiner later discovered that he had died from a fentanyl overdose. But he wasn't known for drug use. Where did the stuff come from? Try his wife. According to the charges, Mrs. Richens had contacted an unnamed person between December 2021 and February 2022 to acquire a strong pain medication, supposedly for an investor with a back injury. She received hydrocodone, but she wasn't happy with the purchase. She allegedly contacted the person again, saying she wanted some of the Michael Jackson stuff, and specifically asked for fentanyl. That's what she got. And only 3 days later, after a Valentine's Day dinner, Eric got sick. Eric believed that he had been poisoned, told a friend that he thought his wife was trying to poison him. The court documents state, according to the BBC. See, that detail there, you would think if he actually believed that, like, he would not be taking a drink from that she made him, just a couple months later or whatever. A month later, maybe. Curiously, nothing more seemed to happen. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Richens bought more fentanyl, the court files state. On March 4th, Eric died. According to the court filing, the Moscow Mule he had on the night of his death included more than vodka, ginger beer, and lime. The secret ingredient was fentanyl, and it was served to Eric by his wife, according to the documents. Mrs. Richens was arrested on May 8th and charged with Eric's murder. In addition, she's facing charges of possessing GHB, an illegal narcolepsy drug that's often used as a date rape drug. A detention hearing for Corey Richards is scheduled for May 19th, and to think that her book, published just 2 months ago, is dedicated to my amazing husband and a wonderful father. I mean, the thing of it is, I kind of wonder, like, if she had never wrote the book and got that round of publicity, like, would they have still, like, discovered the fentanyl poisoning?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, I don't know, like, why it seemed like the medical examiner would have done it initially, instead of, like, this far after. So, like, I don't know if there was something in her interview or something that made them take a second look, or I don't know what exactly caused the second look. But, I mean, just, like, the sheer audacity to, like,
Yeah, write a book.
Write a
about-
book, and also like make her kids go through the trauma of like helping her write it and stuff. I mean, she seems like a real psycho.
Yeah, she is. She killed the father of their kids. Man.
Yeah.
Man, this makes the world scary, dude. This guy was married to this woman. Like, he known her for years. And even then, he learned to not trust her because she changed on him. Like, he was like, I think she's trying to poison me.
Right.
Like, I don't know, man. People are just crazy, man. This world is full of these kinds of people.
But also, if I was like the guy that he told that to, like, I think my wife tried to poison me, and then he dies, like, a couple weeks later, I'd be like, hey, police, this guy told me, like, she was trying to poison him a couple weeks ago. Maybe look into that.
I would have thought that's what, like, maybe he brought that up later or something. Like, that must have been what broke it open.
Like maybe that guy sat on that information for some reason?
Maybe he didn't, maybe he thought, like, oh, they must have figured out why he did it or what happened exactly. Maybe he didn't know that was it. But then, like, later realizing, like, oh, there was no cause of death, just natural causes. He did tell me this. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't go into detail of, like, what brought him back around to it, but, man, crazy story.
Yeah. It's just that, I mean, there's so many people who get away with it. This woman almost got away with it.
That's true. I do wonder about that with, like, poisoning specifically, like, how many people... Because people have gotten away with it.
Oh, for
For
sure.
sure, yeah.
Like, I've heard of cases, like, where somebody's done that, like, 3 or 4 times to different people. Like, they'll be like, they had an ex-husband that they murdered. They had an boyfriend. A long time ago, somebody died that they knew. Like, there's like a trail.
Right.
And they still get away with all this stuff until finally that last victim is the one that, like, gives them away. It's nuts, man.
I'm pretty sure they've had cases of, like, like, psycho nurses, too, that, like, poison patients,
Yeah.
And eventually they're like, oh, man, we noticed finally so many people have died under this woman's care or whatever, and looked into it. It's like, phew.
And that's surprising to me that a nurse would do that, because you go down that path, you think, to help people, like,
Right.
Granted, they make good money, but everybody knows nurses, what they do, like, is primarily they help people. Like, their whole job is to, like, bathe, wash, clean, help. And to get into it for nefarious purposes, like, you really got to be motivated to hate people, to, like, want to kill people.
Yeah, and most nurses I've ever interacted with are, like, very nice and seemingly very, like,
they're, like,
bubbly,
nurturing,
yeah.
kind of, yeah.
But, man, yeah, there's some psychos out there.
Yeah.